to believe in title and rich on blind date. But love a simple girl, eating street food at first sight. She went on a blind date pretending to be someone else, never expecting the man across the table would be her future boss, the billionaire CEO of her company. When he discovered her secret, she braced for heartbreak. But what he said broke her in a different way. "I knew from the beginning, and I still fell for you." This is the story of Jackson Reid, a powerful, guarded American CEO, and Emily Carter, a small-town girl who only wanted to help her friend. One mistaken identity, one 10-day contract, and a love neither of them planned for. But when the truth unravels, can love survive pride, betrayal, and a baby on the way? Don't blink, the ending will leave you in tears. Chapter 1. First Encounter. The rain hit Manhattan like a tantrum, slicking the streets in silver and casting the city in a moody, glimmering glow. Inside the sleek headquarters of Reid Global Holdings, the mood was even stormier. Jackson Reid adjusted his cufflinks without looking at the reflection in the glass wall of his office. He never needed to. Every inch of him had been groomed for perfection. 6'2", ex-military precision, Wall Street discipline. And yet, he couldn't shake her from his mind. A girl from the blind date. A fake heiress with warm eyes, chipped nail polish, and the kind of honesty that didn't belong in his world. "Sir," his executive assistant's voice crackled over the intercom. "Your new secretary has arrived." He turned slowly. "Send her in." The door opened, and there she was. Emily Carter, though last time she'd called herself Melanie Donovan, stood in the doorway, wearing a department store blazer 2 sizes too big, her purse clutched like a life preserver. Her hair was a bit frizzy from the rain, cheeks flushed with nerves. When their eyes met, time stopped for a split second. She froze. "He didn't, Halton. You again," Jackson said calmly, like discovering a ghost in his living room. Her lips parted. "Mr. Reid, I didn't realize." He stepped forward, his voice low, unreadable. "You came to a blind date pretending to be a banking heiress, lied to my face, and now you've shown up at my company under your real name. Either you're bold or really bad at hiding." Emily swallowed hard. "I needed the job." His gaze narrowed. "You lied." "I didn't lie on my resume," she said quickly. "I have a business degree, I have experience, and I work harder than—" "I'm not interested in your justifications." A voice faltered. "Then why didn't you reject me?" "Because you intrigue me," he said. "And because I have a problem you might solve." He motioned for her to sit. Emily remained standing. "I'm not here to be your date again." "Nona," he said, "you're here to be my assistant. But I want you to pretend to be my girlfriend for a month." Emily blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "My grandfather's been threatening to cut me out of the family trust unless I get engaged by the end of this quarter. I've got $1 billion merger at stake. I need a temporary solution." "It's fake relationship," she echoed, stunned. "A contracted arrangement," he corrected. 10 dates. No intimacy required, just play the part, smile at a few parties, accompany me to family dinners, keep up appearance. Her laugh was dry. "You think this is Pretty Woman?" "I think you're desperate enough to say yes," he said without a flicker of shame. Emily felt heat rise in her chest. "You don't know anything about me." Jackson leaned in. "You're behind on rent. Your mother is in hospice care in Ohio. Your brother just started community college on a scholarship and is barely affording books. Your resume says, what? But your eyes say you've held down 3 jobs and skipped lunch more times than you'll admit." She paled. "And don't feel insulted," he added. "I respect people who survive." Emily looked at the contract he slid across the desk. 10 dates. $100,000, 0 cents salary. $1 million, 0 cents breach penalty, confidentiality mandatory. She stared at it. "You have 5 minutes to decide," Jackson said. "I don't like wasting time." Her hand trembled slightly as she touched the paper. "I can't believe I'm considering this," she muttered. "Believe it," he said. "You get financial freedom, I get peace of mind. After 10 dates, we walk away." "And what if someone finds out?" "I won't," he said flatly. "But if they do, I take the fall." Something in his voice told her he meant it. Emily inhaled deeply, then signed. 1 week later, the gala was held at the Metropolitan Club, the kind of place where old money lingered like cigar smoke and conversations revolved around mergers, not memories. Emily stood in the entry hall, feeling like an intruder in her own skin. The gown Jackson's assistant had picked for her, deep sapphire silk with a plunging back, fit like a dream but felt like a costume. Beside her, Jackson Reid looked like a king. "You clean up well," he said without looking at her. "You mean I don't look like trailer trash tonight?" she replied. His mouth twitched. "I never said that." She hesitated. "You thought it." "I thought you looked real," he said, surprising her. "And in my world, real is rarer than wealth." Before she could respond, cameras flashed. "Smile," he whispered. "You're my girlfriend tonight." They posed. And for a brief moment something unspoken passed between them. Jackson leaned in. "Pretend you adore me." She whispered back, "Try not to look like you're bored to death." He smiled. It wasn't forced. Later, in a quiet corner of the ballroom, "You're surprisingly good at this," Jackson said, sipping his scotch as they watched couples swirl across the floor. Emily rolled her eyes. "You mean pretending to be in love with a smug billionaire?" "Sure, it's every broke girl's dream." He glanced at her. "You're different." She frowned. "You keep saying that. Different how?" "Everyone wants something from me. Money, status, power. You just want to breathe." Her voice softened. "I just want to survive." Their eyes met, and something shifted. It wasn't part of the contract. It wasn't part of the plan. But for a fleeting moment, they forgot they were pretending. Meanwhile, across the room, in a dim corner, a woman in a red dress snapped a photo. Vanessa Langford, Jackson's ex and daughter of a powerful investor, zoomed in on Emily. She smirked. "Girl's no debutante," she said, slipping the photo to her assistant. "Find out who she really is." The next morning, Emily arrived at work early, hoping to stay invisible. She tiptoed past the other assistants, avoiding their curious glances. But when she stepped into Jackson's office, he was already waiting. "You're late," he said without looking up. "I'm 15 minutes early." "You're late. To admit last night wasn't entirely fake." She opened her mouth, closed it. His eyes lifted. Something changed. She said softly, "It's starting to feel real." Jackson stood, walked to her, close enough that she could smell the expensive cologne and tension between them. "Emily," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "just so we're clear, I don't mix business with pleasure. This arrangement ends cleanly, no feelings." She stepped back. "Mr. Reid, crystal clear?" But as she turned away, her heart cracked, just a little. Because what had started as a lie was beginning to feel like something terrifyingly real. Chapter 2: Help and a New Beginning. Emily Carter sat at her kitchen table, elbows on a stack of unpaid bills, forehead resting on her hands. The flickering light bulb above her buzzed like an anxious bee. Another thing she couldn't afford to fix. The glow from her phone lit up. Jackson Reid, meeting at 8 a.m. sharp tomorrow, dress formal, smile optional. She groaned. Formal? She'd barely owned clothes that fit, much less anything that screamed executive girlfriend. Her best black heels had broken last month. The only pair she could wear without blisters squeaked when she walked. As she read the message again, her stomach growled. Half a peanut butter sandwich from lunch wasn't going to cut it tonight. She opened the fridge. A half carton of milk, an old lemon, and expired yogurt stared back. She closed the door slowly. That was when the knock came. She jumped. No one knocked at her door. When she opened it, she blinked, twice, to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. Jackson Reid stood in her hallway, holding a plain brown paper bag. She stared. Are you lost, or did you take a wrong turn into... He stepped past her into the apartment without asking, as if he had every right in the world. Where's your stove? She blinked. Over there. But it doesn't work? Jackson ignored her and began pulling containers from the bag. You brought me dinner. I brought us dinner, he said, setting down cartons from an upscale Korean place in Midtown. Her jaw dropped. Why? You skipped lunch. Her arms crossed. Were you spying on me? You were faint in the elevator, he said without flinching. And you've been wearing the same coat for a week. I connect dots. You think you can just barge in here and fix my life with dumplings? Jackson unwrapped a pair of chopsticks. I'm not here to fix your life. I'm here because you're doing me a favor. Emily sat across from him reluctantly. Fine, she mumbled, but I'm keeping the leftovers. He smiled slightly. Later that evening, Emily found herself laughing. Actually laughing. She didn't know how the topic had shifted from quarterly projections to their most embarrassing childhood moments, but somewhere between kimchi and sesame noodles, the conversation had become easy, unscripted. I used to wear a Superman cape under my school uniform, Jackson admitted. She nearly choked on her water. You did not. He raised his hand like he was under oath. Swear, every day for 3 years. I believed it made me immune to bullies. Did it? But it made me run faster when I saw them coming. Emily snorted. You? Bullied? He shrugged. My father was too busy building empires to teach me how to throw a punch. Wealth doesn't teach you how to fight. It teaches you how to avoid looking weak. She studied him, her smile slowly fading. How did you learn to fight? Jackson met her eyes. By losing. And learning. The next morning. Is that a new blazer? Whispered Rachel, one of the assistants, as Emily walked into the office in a perfectly tailored navy suit. Emily nodded shyly. She didn't mention that it had arrived in a garment bag at her door this morning. No note, no explanation, but she knew exactly where it came from. When she reached Jackson's office, he was already sipping coffee. Nice suit, he said without looking up. She narrowed her eyes. It's tailored perfectly, almost like someone knew my size. He shrugged. Lucky guess. Emily hesitated. You didn't have to. I know, he said simply, but I wanted to. That was the problem. He wasn't supposed to want to. And she wasn't supposed to like it. But that afternoon. Where are we going? She asked, clutching her notepad as he led her into the private elevator. To my grandfather, he said. We're having lunch with him and the board chairman. Smile, nod, don't mention Ohio. Emily stiffened. You're dragging me into the lion's den? You signed the contract, he reminded her. Why, I didn't sign up for heart palpitations and ulcers. He glanced sideways. You'll be fine. Just remember, he's hard on everyone, including me. Lunch at the Reid estate. The table stretched longer than her entire apartment. Fine china, crystal glasses. Across from her sat Henry Reid, a lion in winter, dressed in a three-piece suit that looked older than her. His eyes were sharp, his voice sharper. And what do your parents do, Miss Carter? He asked. Emily hesitated. My mother's retired, my father passed. He raised an eyebrow. Retired from what? Waitressing, she said, lifting her chin. Jackson looked up, surprised. Silence. Then Henry grunted. At least it's honest work, better than some of these trust fund babies who've never held a broom. Emily blinked. Did she just get approved? After lunch, as they were walking back to the car, Jackson said softly, He likes you. You don't hate me, she corrected. It's not the same thing. He glanced at her. No one's ever stood up to him like that. We asked a question, I gave a real answer. Jackson smiled faintly. Real is your superpower, you know that? She didn't respond, but her heart beat a little faster. Back at the office. She was behind on filing reports when a voice stopped her. You're the new secretary? Emily turned. A woman stood in the doorway, polished, poised, with fire in her eyes. "I'm Ava Sinclair," she said coolly, "Jackson's ex, and a board member's daughter." Emily blinked. "Okay." Ava smirked. "I've seen girls like you before, dime a dozen. You think sleeping your way into his calendar will buy you a future?" Emily stood slowly. "I'm not sleeping with anyone, and I didn't ask for this job. I earned it." "Sweetheart," Ava leaned in, her perfume too sharp. "In this world, there's no such thing as earning a man like Jackson. There's only positioning." And then she walked off. Emily exhaled slowly. "This is going to be harder than I thought." That night, she was still thinking about Ava when Jackson walked past her desk, coat in hand. "Walk with me," he said. She didn't argue. They ended up at a street food stall, a simple cart under glowing string lights, the smell of grilled cheese and hot pretzels mixing with night air. "This is my kind of place," she said, smiling. "I know," Jackson replied. She looked at him. "How?" "Because I watch you." Emily stopped chewing. Her heart stuttered. "I see how you touch your necklace when you're nervous," he continued. "How you hum when you file papers. How you always put 2 sugars in your coffee but never drink more than half." She swallowed hard. "I thought this was just business," sober Jackson said softly. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then, as a gust of wind swept her hair into her face, he reached out, slow, careful, and tucked it behind her ear. "Emily," he said. "I think we're in trouble." "Great, I've saved the full context of the lie that started everything. Let's pick up where we left off." Chapter 3. The first real date. It was supposed to be date 3. Just another outing to check off the contract. Smile for a few photos, make small talk, convince the world they were in love. But nothing about Jackson Reid and Emily Carter was ever just anything anymore. "Brooklyn," Emily repeated as she stepped out of the town car, heels sinking slightly into the cracked sidewalk. "This isn't exactly where billionaires roam." Jackson adjusted his watch, glancing at the vibrant chaos of the street fair ahead. "That's the point." They walked in silence at first, past booths of vintage records, local artists, food trucks that smelled like caramel and pepper. Amora wore a sundress she'd thrifted the week before. It was pale yellow, soft, nothing like the sharp edges of his tailored world. Jackson noticed the way the sunlight kissed her shoulders. He looked away quickly. "Let me guess," she said, eyeing a stand selling handmade soaps. "You've never bought anything that didn't come with a brand name and a private label?" He smirked. "Wrong. I once bought a pair of socks at Target." Emily laughed. "Living dangerously, Mr. Reid." "You have no idea." They stopped at a booth selling vinyl records. Jackson flipped through the bins, his fingers surprisingly gentle. "Why do you even own a record player?" she teased. "I do," he replied, pulling one out. "Fleetwood Mac. My mother used to play this." Emily turned. He rarely mentioned his family. "She passed away when I was 13, he said softly. "Cancer. My dad threw himself into work. Never really came back from it." "I'm sorry," she said gently. "That's when I learned the 2 things that really matter in this world." She looked up at him. "What are they?" "Time and who you spend it with." Her breath caught. He handed her the record. "For you." "I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because every time you do something nice, I forget we're pretending." Jackson's voice dropped. "Maybe we're not." Later, they stumbled across a dance circle in the middle of the fair. A street band played Sinatra with unexpected charm. A little girl tugged at her father's hand, asking to dance. Couples twirled, strangers smiling under paper lanterns. Emily watched longingly, her fingers twitching at her side. "Do you want to dance?" Jackson asked. "Here," she said. "Now?" "No boardroom, no photography. Just us." She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. They swayed under the string lights. his hand at her waist, her head near his shoulder. No words. Just breath and heartbeats. And the terrifying realization that what started as a lie was beginning to feel like the only truth that mattered. Later that night, back in the car, silence blanketed them. But it wasn't awkward. It was full of things unsaid, feelings unacknowledged. As the car pulled up to her building, Jackson turned to her. "Emily, I asked you for one more date after 10. Would you say yes?" She looked at him, eyes wide. "Ask me when we get there." And with that, she stepped out, leaving him breathless, wondering if this was still a game, or the beginning of something that could break them both. Chapter 4: The Lie That Comes Back. A Reid Global Charity Gala, a mysterious envelope, a confrontation with the past, and the first crack in the fragile glass of trust. 2 weeks later, Emily Carter stood before a floor-length mirror in a penthouse suite she could never afford, wrapped in a silk gown she hadn't chosen, staring at a reflection she barely recognized. The neckline dipped lower than she was used to, the heels felt like betrayal. And yet, it wasn't the outfit that had her heart hammering. It was the man on the other side of the wall. Jackson Reid. The man who made her feel like a lie. And somehow, like she was finally home. "Look," Jackson's voice caught as she stepped out. "Stunning." "You always say that," she deflected, smoothing the fabric with trembling hands. "Because it's always true." He offered his arm. She took it. Not because the contract required it, but because tonight, she wanted to. The Reid Global Winter Charity Gala was an explosion of excess silver chandeliers dripping with light, tuxedos and diamonds swirling through champagne fog. But beneath the elegance, sharks circled, deals whispered, cameras waited. And somewhere between the hors d'oeuvres and the third violin sonata, trouble found them. Ave Sinclair stood across the ballroom like a blood-red flag, Jackson's ex, and daughter of the man whose vote could make or break the merger. She glided toward them like a storm in satin. "Jackson, always a pleasure." He tensed, just slightly. You must be..." Ava turned to Emily, eyes narrowing, the new flavor of the quarter. Emily forced a smile. "Emily Carter?" Smirked. "Interesting, because that's not what she called herself when she introduced herself as Melanie Donovan at the Rosemont Lounge last month." The air thinned. "You've been doing background checks?" Jackson's voice was dangerously calm. "I know," Ava purred. "I just happened to have drinks with the real Melanie Donovan yesterday. Lovely girl. Doesn't recall ever meeting you." Silence. Emily's cheeks flushed crimson. "Jackson, But before she could explain, Ava held up a sleek black envelope. "I thought you'd want this," she said sweetly, handing it to him. "A little dossier I put together, just in case you're not as perceptive as you think." Then she walked away, hips swinging like victory. Jackson didn't open the envelope. Not right away. He just stared at Emily. "Is it true?" he asked. She whispered. "But, from the beginning, I was helping a friend. It was supposed to be one night. You were never supposed to matter." He exhaled like the wind had been knocked out of him. "I did." She nodded. "I still do." They left early. No more dancing, no more smiling. In the car, silence roared louder than traffic. When they reached her building, she hesitated. "Jackson, please, don't shut down." "I don't shut down," he said, jaw tight. "I cut loose." "Still cut me loose," she snapped. "But don't pretend you didn't know. You've known something was off since the beginning. You chose to let it go." "Because I wanted to believe you'd tell me yourself." Her voice broke. "I was going to." He nodded slowly. "Why you didn't?" When that night, Emily sat on the floor of her apartment, still in her gown, mascara smudged, reading the contract they both signed. 10 dates. No feelings. No lies. Too late for all three. And she tore it in half. Then again. And again. Till nothing remained but pieces. Across town, Jackson stood in his penthouse, staring out at the city. The black envelope sat unopened on the coffee table. He reached for it, paused, and then tossed it into the fire. Because sometimes, the truth didn't need to be read. It just needed to be forgiven. Chapter 5. A storm called jealousy. A tense business trip in Miami, an unexpected third wheel, a night soaked in rain and regret, and the first taste of real heartbreak. 3 days later, Miami, Florida. The sky was too blue, the sun too bright, but Emily Carter didn't notice any of it. She stepped off the private jet in a beige pencil skirt and heels too tight for her conscience. The South Florida heat clung to her skin like guilt. Jackson Reid hadn't spoken to her since the gala. No texts. No witty banter. No stolen glances across morning coffee. Just silence. And a cold corporate summons to accompany him on a 3-day investor summit. Strictly business, he'd said, which meant her heart needed to stay out of it. Inside the lobby of the oceanfront hotel, Emily fumbled with her portfolio as Jackson greeted the front desk. 2 executive rooms, he said without looking at her. Separate floors. Emily's stomach sank. Of course. Unless you'd prefer I book you somewhere else entirely? She shook her head. That won't be necessary, Mr. Reid. He flinched at the formal tone, but said nothing. The day dragged on. Meetings, presentations, smiles that never reached anyone's eyes. But it wasn't until dinner that the storm truly arrived. Because she showed up. To Sinclair. In a silk white dress like a declaration of war. Jackson, she purred, sliding into the seat beside him uninvited. I had no idea we were staying at the same hotel. Emily stiffened across the table. You came all this way for a merger? She asked, trying to stay composed. No, Ava said smoothly. I came for Jackson. He didn't correct her. He didn't even blink. That hurt worse than any insult. Later that night, Emily stood barefoot on the hotel balcony, wind whipping her hair as thunder rolled in the distance. The cocktail dress she wore felt like a lie, and her heart thudded with something dangerously close to humiliation. She should have left. She should have said no to this trip. Yet your phone buzzed. Jackson, meet me downstairs. 10 minutes. She almost didn't go. Almost. On the beach. Rain drizzled as she walked toward the pier, heels in hand, toes sinking into wet sand. Jackson was already there, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled, staring out at the angry tide. You shouldn't be out here, he said without turning. You'll catch a cold. You shouldn't send mixed signals, she replied. But here we are. And finally he turned. And the look in his eyes wasn't cold. It was tired, tormented. Ava knew from the beginning you weren't Melanie. She was just waiting for the right moment to destroy you. And you let her? Emily whispered. I didn't stop her. Same thing. He stepped closer, his voice low. You lied to me, and that should have been the end. But I kept thinking about the girl who stood up to my grandfather. The girl who dances barefoot and eats street food and doesn't give a damn about titles. Then why are you punishing me? Because I'm angry, he said, and because I care more than I should. That admission hit harder than the waves crashing behind them. So what now? She asked. We ask you a question, he said, his voice raw. Do you still want to do this? Emily stepped back, rain streaming down her face like tears. I don't know, she whispered. Because every time I try to reach you, you pull away. Every time I try to trust you, he said quietly, you remind me why I shouldn't. Much silence. The kind that cracked things wide open. Then Jackson turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing on a beach in the rain, barefoot and broken-hearted. And for the first time, she realized this wasn't a fake breakup. This was real. Chapter 6. The Truth Beneath the Surface. A rooftop in New York, a childhood secret, a mysterious photo, and the moment Jackson sees Emily, not as a lie, but as the girl he was always meant to find. 1 week later, New York City. It had been 7 days since Miami. 7 days since Emily Carter walked off that rain-soaked beach, toes numb and heart worse. And in that time, nothing. No calls. No messages. No, "Are you okay?" from the man who once stared at her like she rewrote his entire definition of real. But the worst part? She still checked her phone. Every damn night. In the penthouse above Manhattan, Jackson Reid stood in front of a fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. Ava's envelope, the one he'd once thrown into the flames, had been replaced. She'd sent another. Inside, a photo, slightly faded, torn at the corner. It was of a child. A girl in a yellow coat standing beside a donation box outside a hospital. The note scrawled on the back read, "Emily Carter, age 10, Southside Free Clinic." He stared at it like it was a memory. Because it was. 18 years ago. The winter was brutal that year. Jackson was 12, angry, lonely, waiting in the back seat of his father's Bentley while the chauffeur picked up a check from the board. And then he saw her. A little girl, coat too thin, cheeks red from the wind, standing on a crate beside a cardboard sign. "A way to help sick kids," it read. "Even a penny matters." People walked past. She didn't flinch. He got out of the car, against his father's orders. "Why are you out here?" he'd asked. It smiled, missing a front tooth, and said, "Because someone has to care." Then she gave him a piece of her sandwich. "You look like you need it." He never forgot her. He just never knew her name. Until now. Present day. Jackson sat on the edge of his bed, heart thundering in his chest. All this time, that girl had been Emily. The one who lied to his face. But also the one who gave him his first taste of grace. And suddenly, everything made sense. Why he couldn't let go. Why her laugh undid him. Why, no matter how hard he tried, she never felt like a stranger. Meanwhile, Brooklyn. Emily returned to her tiny apartment to find an envelope wedged under her door. Inside, a ticket to the Reid Foundation Gala. A handwritten note. "Come, not for appearances, for answers. Jr." Her fingers trembled. She told herself not to go. She went anyway. That night, Gather Rooftop. The city skyline shimmered like a secret. Emily stood near the ledge, heart pounding. She was about to leave when she heard his voice. "I've been looking for you." And she turned. Jackson stood beneath the string lights, his tie loosened, eyes unreadable. "Why is this?" she asked. "Another PR stunt?" He said. "This time, it's just me." He stepped forward and handed her the photo. "You gave me half a sandwich once, in the middle of a snowstorm. You looked at me like I wasn't some rich kid. Just a boy who needed someone." Emily's eyes widened. "That was you?" He nodded. "I never forgot." Silence wrapped around them. "You think I'm a liar," she whispered. "I think you're human," he said, "and maybe the only one who's ever looked at me like I was worth saving." Her voice cracked. "Why now?" "Because I remembered," he said. "And because, even if this started with lies, I don't want it to end without the truth." He reached into his coat and pulled out a revised contract. 10 dates, crossed out, replaced by 2 words. "Start over?" Emily looked up, blinking through tears. "Why if I'm still scared? And then we'll be scared together." He extended his hand. And this time, she didn't hesitate. Chapter 7. The Ghost Between Us. A snowy walk through Central Park, An unexpected reunion, a buried betrayal, and the night love is tested by the one man Jackson never expected to face. New York City, Central Park. The city had turned to snow. Soft, silent, and heavy with memory. Jackson Reid walked beside Emily, their gloved hands laced together. They didn't speak much. They didn't have to. Not after what they'd survived. The gala. The confession. The photograph that rewrote their past. Everything was different now. No contracts. No pretending. Just them, or so they thought. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd met differently?" Emily asked, brushing snow off a park bench. Jackson glanced at her. "We did. You just don't remember." She smiled softly. "The sandwich." He touched her hand. "It was more than that." "Do you believe in fate?" "I didn't, until you." They stopped to watch a street violinist near the ice rink. Children laughed in the distance. Couples twirled, and for a second it felt like something real could last. Until the past walked up behind them. "Jackson," a voice said, smooth, practiced, and venomous. Emily turned. A man in a long charcoal coat, sharp jaw, smug eyes. "I am Holloway, Jackson's former best friend, and the man who once tried to steal his company from beneath him." "Didn't think I'd see you here," Liam said, "especially after the board vote." Jackson tensed. "I thought you left for London." "Business brings me back. And old ghosts." His eyes flicked to Emily. "You must be the infamous Emily Carter, or should I say, the fake heiress." Emily froze. "Liam," Jackson said, voice low with warning. "Wine," Liam smirked. "You didn't tell her about the real reason he couldn't cut you loose?" Emily turned sharply. "What is he talking about?" Liam leaned in. "You were never just a girl he liked, sweetheart. You were leverage. Reid Global's biggest investor, the one holding the merger hostage, they demanded he settle down. Publicly. Be the family man they could trust." "That's not true," Jackson said. "Isn't it?" Liam sneered. "She was convenient, adorable, in a struggling artist, sad eyes kind of way, and just naive enough to believe he chose her." Emily stepped back, like she'd been slapped. "Tell me he's lying." Jackson's jaw clenched. "Did someone offer you a deal if he made me your girlfriend, or worse, your fiancé?" Silence. And then, "Why?" Jackson said. "But that was before you, before I knew you were you." "You used me," she whispered. "I protected you," he snapped. "You think they would have let you near me if I hadn't spun the story my way? You should have told me." "I didn't know how. I thought if I told you the whole truth, I'd lose you." Her eyes filled with tears. "You just did." And she walked away. Not because she stopped loving him, but because trust, once cracked, echoes louder than any confession. That night, Emily's apartment. She stared at her reflection, bare face, red eyes, the girl behind all the lies. The girl who finally thought she was enough. That same night, Jackson's penthouse. He poured a drink, but didn't sip it. A fire burned low. The snow outside fell like ash, and in his hand, the velvet box he never got to open. Inside, a ring. Not for business. Not for leverage. Just for her. Chapter 8. The Goodbye Kiss. A hospital room, lit by regret, a rooftop under falling snow, and the kiss that should have come at the beginning, but might now be their last. 3 days later, Midtown Manhattan. Emily Carter didn't mean to see him again. She hadn't answered his calls. She'd left the apartment only for work, ducking behind winter scarves and excuses. But fate, as always, had other plans. Her phone rang. A known caller. "This is Lenox Hospital," the voice said. "Are you listed as Jackson Reid's emergency contact?" Her heart stopped. "He's been admitted. Car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but he asked for you." 1 hour later, ICU, room 9. The monitors beeped, slow and steady. Jackson lay in the sterile hospital bed, pale against the white sheets. A bruise shadowed his cheek. His right hand was wrapped. His usual armor-tailored suit cutting words was gone. She looked human, small, and Emily, despite everything, couldn't look away. "We was lucky," the nurse whispered. "Could have been worse," said he swerved to avoid hitting a stray dog. Of course he did. Because even when he was breaking hearts, Jackson Reid didn't hurt what didn't deserve it. Emily stepped closer. "You're an idiot," she whispered, voice cracking. "You lie like it's breathing, and yet you show up like a hero when it's too late." He stirred. Eyes fluttered open. "Emily?" "Yeah, it's me." "I must be dreaming," he murmured. "You're here. Only because you're stupid enough to get hit by a car." A faint smile touched his lips. Wasn't a great... Silence stretched between them. Finally he asked, "Are you going to yell at me?" She looked at him, bruised, vulnerable, real. "No," she said softly. "I'm just tired of loving someone who keeps running from the truth." His eyes searched hers. "I didn't use you. But you let me believe you did." "Because I was scared," he whispered, "of losing you, of not deserving you." "You don't," she said. He flinched. "Neither do I deserve to feel this much," she added, "and still walk away." "Then don't." That night, rooftop of Reid Global. The wind was sharp, the snow swirling like unfinished dreams. He stood there, against medical advice, coat half-buttoned, staring at the skyline that never blinked. She joined him. Didn't speak. Just stood beside him. "I don't want to lose you," he finally said, "but I understand if I already have." Emily turned to him. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, her lips trembling, not from fear, but from all the words she hadn't said. "The first time you kissed me," she whispered, "I wish it had been real." "It was." "Then show me." Jackson hesitated, stepped closer. One gently cupped her face. "Emily Carter," he breathed. "I don't want a contract. I don't want 10 dates. I don't want lies." "Why do you want?" "All of you. All of you, even the parts that are scared." And then he kissed her. No camera flashes, no investors, no agenda. Just snow, silence, and surrender. It tasted like apology. It burned like hope. It shattered everything she'd built to protect herself. When they pulled apart, her eyes were wet. "To do this," she said, "there's no more pretending. I'm not your assistant. I'm not your fake girlfriend. I'm not your second choice." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "You're my only choice." The truth comes home. A family estate crackling with old money and older expectations. A dinner table filled with ghosts, a mother's cruel test, and the moment Emily stands up, not just for love, but for herself. 2 weeks later, the Reid family estate. The invitation had arrived on Gold Edge stationery. Family dinner, attendance required. Bring your guest? Jackson hadn't spoken much when he handed it to Emily. Just, "I want to meet you again. This time as the woman I chose." He swallowed hard. Not the fake girlfriend. Not the charity case from Ohio. Of his choice. It felt like a battlefield invitation. And she wasn't wrong. That evening, the mansion looked like something carved from a history book. Oil paintings, cold chandeliers, mahogany staircases that creaked under the weight of secrets. Emily wore a simple black dress, elegant, modest, the one thing she owned that made her feel like both herself and someone unbreakable. "Ready?" Jackson whispered as they approached the double doors. "We're not even close," she said. "But I'm here." Dinner was a war. Jackson's grandfather Henry was silent but observant, his fork movements as deliberate as boardroom votes. Jackson's mother, Evelyn Reid, was less subtle. "So, Emily," she said, lips painted in a shade called judgment. "What was it you said your family does again?" "My mother ran a bakery," Emily replied. "She passed last year." "Why quaint, that explains your," she eyed Emily's silver bracelet, "unique taste." Jackson's hand tightened beneath the table. "And your father?" "Left when I was 8. Evelyn hummed, sipping wine. "Wealth is more than money, it's breeding, legacy. It's what separates those who marry Reid men from those who serve them coffee." Emily said nothing. She didn't flinch. Not until Evelyn leaned forward and added, "Tell me, dear, do you really believe a girl from a trailer park could ever understand what it means to protect a billion-dollar name?" The room went silent. Even the waitstaff paused. Emily smiled. Soft, sharp, deadly. "All due respect, Mrs. Reid," she said, voice calm, "I think protecting your son has nothing to do with money and everything to do with seeing him. Really seeing him." Evelyn blinked. "For the record," Emily continued, "you're right. I didn't grow up with silver spoons or summers in Nantucket, but I did grow up knowing how to fight for people I love. I've washed floors, served drinks, buried a parent, and held my little brother's hand through cancer treatments. On a waitress's salary? You want to know if I can protect your son? I already have." She looked at Jackson. "We just hasn't told you how many times." Henry Reid gave a single, sharp nod. Evelyn's wine glass trembled slightly. "Jackson?" He looked like a man in awe. After dinner, the garden terrace. The stars peeked through layers of cloud as Jackson pulled Emily close, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "You didn't have to do that," he whispered. "Why?" she said. "I did. I've tried to ruin every woman I've ever brought here." "Good," she said. "I'm not every woman." He kissed her temple. "You are mine. Say that again when your board finds out I've been living in a rent-controlled apartment and wearing the same boots for 3 winters. I'll buy you new boots." Don't you dare." They laughed too loud for the estate, too free for the family crest. But real. Gone. It was real. Inside, Evelyn watched them from the window, her knuckles white around a glass, and her voice low as she muttered, "This girl. She'll ruin him." Henry didn't flinch. "Why?" he said. "She just might save him. Just 10. The final offer. Stormy boardroom, a press scandal, and a $1 billion ultimatum. This is the chapter where Emily walks away and Jackson learns that love, unlike legacy, can't be bought. 3 days later, Reid Global Headquarters. The city was buzzing. Headlines screamed, "CEO's girlfriend or gold digger?" From waitress to power couple, the Carter climb? Is Reid Global at risk over love? A story had leaked. Not just about Jackson's relationship, but the contract. 10 dates, a fake relationship, a $1 million 0 cents penalty clause. And though Jackson had never enforced it, it was enough to make the world believe she had used him. Inside the Reid Global boardroom, 22 faces stared across polished wood and mahogany trim. Lawyers, executives, shareholders. At the end of the table sat Jackson, silent, steel-eyed. And beside him, Emily, her hands folded, her heart louder than the storm brewing outside the floor. "This scandal is damaging our credibility," said Charles Branson, head of PR. "If the public believes our CEO fabricated a relationship for a merger—" "I didn't fabricate anything," Jackson snapped. "We shall sign a contract," Eleanor Reid interjected from the corner. "Even if your intentions change, perception is reality. We must think of the company's future." "And what about mine?" Jackson asked. "You are the company," she said coldly. "That's the burden you were born with." Emily stood. "Then maybe he should be allowed to choose what else he carries." Gasps, murmurs, but she didn't flinch. She turned to the room. "You all think I'm here for a check, But I was the one who walked in, broke. Yes, broke, not broken. I didn't ask for this spotlight. I didn't ask to fall for the one man who sees people as problems to solve. But I did fall. And that was real. No paycheck, no agenda. She looked at Jackson. Her voice softened. I love you, but I won't stay where I'm only tolerated because of your last name. She stood. Emily? Her voice cracked. Because if you say it now, it'll be in front of people who never saw me as more than a headline. She pulled the ring off her finger, one he hadn't officially given, but had slipped on her hand one night while she slept, laid it on the table, and walked away, sighed in the elevator. Emily held her tears like a soldier, her back straight, her jaw tight, until the doors closed. Then she crumbled. That night, a penthouse empty of her. Jackson stared at the city. Lights blurred, whiskey untouched. Her scarf still lay draped over the armchair. He picked up the photo from Miami, the one where she wasn't looking, just laughing into the wind. We left, Evelyn said from the doorway. It's for the best. I know, he said. It's not. He turned, and for the first time in years, he walked away from the company his father built. 1 week later, Brooklyn art exhibit. Emily adjusted the frames on her first curated gallery wall, a series titled Before the Lie, photos of working-class women in moments of dignity. Her mother, her childhood friends, herself. A shadow moved behind her. I'm here to buy the building, she said without turning. You're 2 days too late. I'm not here to buy anything. She turned. Jackson stood in a wrinkled t-shirt, no guards, no assistants, no suit. Just him. You're really bad at letting go, she whispered. Because I never wanted to let go of the only person who ever saw me. He stepped closer. I gave up the board. You resigned? I walked away, from the company, the legacy, all of it. Why? Because love shouldn't be a transaction. And I'm done doing math with my heart. He pulled out something from his coat. Not a ring. A key. I bought us a space. A building in Soho. Studio upstairs, coffee shop below. You can show your work, I'll make espresso. Emily's breath hitched. You can't even spell espresso. He smiled. I'll learn. Jackson. It's not a proposal, he said. It's a start. Over. For real this time. She looked at him, then stepped into his arms. Okay, she whispered. Let's start over. The light that started everything. The soft murmur of jazz filled the upscale Manhattan lounge, where martinis clinked and conversations floated on a sea of entitlement. It was the kind of place where last names mattered more than first impressions, and where net worth often spoke louder than sincerity. Emily Carter stood by the glass-paneled door, clutching her coat like armor. Her boots were second-hand, her dress borrowed, and the diamond stud earrings fake. Everything about her tonight was a lie. I can't believe I'm doing this, she whispered, checking her reflection one last time in her cracked phone screen. Relax, her best friend Melanie urged through the phone. You're doing me a huge favor. This date is just to keep my parents off my back. Just order coffee, smile, and if he asks anything too personal, say you're me. Emily took a shaky breath. Pretending to be Melanie Donovan, daughter of the Donovan banking dynasty, wasn't just risky, it was insane. But with rent overdue, her mom in hospice, and her little brother skipping meals back in Ohio, Emily had learned to survive on quiet desperation and well-meaning lies. The host led her to a secluded booth in the back. She hadn't even sat down yet when a voice, deep, cool, unbothered, sliced through her thoughts. You're late, he said, without looking up from his phone. I only have 15 minutes. Emily blinked. The man across from her looked like he stepped out of a Forbes magazine cover. Sharp jawline, darker than sinned eyes, and an aura that screamed power. Everything about him was expensive. The tailored charcoal suit, the gold cufflinks, even the quiet way he sipped his espresso. I'm sorry, she said, easing into the seat, forcing a smile. Traffic was a nightmare. He raised an eyebrow. I came from Wall Street. Took me 7 minutes. But I suppose the Upper East Side must be further for you. Emily froze. Did he already know? I'm Melanie Donovan, she lied smoothly. And you must be… Jackson Reid, he replied. CEO of Reid Global Holdings. Not that names matter. Our parents are trying to marry off strangers for strategic leverage. I'm just here to cross off my grandfather's checklist. Emily gave a polite laugh. Same. But as the minutes ticked by, something strange happened. He smiled. Not the cold, corporate kind. It was small, subtle, but real. You're not like the others, he said, studying her. No rehearsed lines, no Rolex flashing, and you didn't order a $200 0-cent wine. Emily flushed. Would you believe I like things simple? Maybe, he said, but I don't believe you're Melanie Donovan. Her breath caught. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Time's up, he said. Thanks for the performance. And he walked out, leaving her stunned, leaving her terrified, and completely unaware that this wouldn't be the last time she'd see Jackson Reid. 2 days later. Emily Carter, the receptionist called out. Emily looked up, confused. She'd applied as a junior admin at Reid Global, desperate for anything stable. The interview was supposed to be routine, but instead she was ushered into a private elevator, up 45 floors, into the marble silence of the executive suite. When the doors opened, she froze. Jackson Reid stood by the window, hands in pockets, backlit by the skyline. You're late, he said, turning. His voice wasn't cold this time, it was amused. You're the CEO? What? He stepped closer, still pretending to be someone you're not. I needed the job, she said, mortified. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. That night, it was interesting, he cut in. You weren't who you claimed to be, but you were honest in all the ways that mattered. I need a new executive assistant. It's yours, if you want it. Emily stared. You're offering me a job? Jackson smiled faintly. 10 dates. That's what my grandfather wants. I need someone to fake a relationship with me. You already know how to lie, Miss Carter. Let's make it official. Her heart raced. This blackmail? It's a contract. What happens after 10 dates? Jackson shrugged. You go back to being whoever you are, and I go back to being whoever I'm supposed to be. Later that night, Emily sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the contract. 10 appearances as Jackson Reid's girlfriend. No real romantic involvement required. Breach of contract equals $1 million, 0 cents penalty. She traced the signature line with her finger. Her hand trembled. If the money would change everything. Medical bills, her brother's future, a real chance. But her pride screamed no. Again, pride didn't pay rent. With a deep breath, she picked up the pen and signed. What she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that the contract would be the easiest part. The hard part would be falling in love and watching everything come undone. In a world obsessed with appearances, Emily Carter taught us something timeless. That love isn't a performance. It's not the cut of a suit, the size of a ring, or the pedigree behind a last name. Love is truth. It's choosing someone when it's messy, and the headlines hurt, and the whole boardroom stares, and your heart says stay. Jackson Reid gave up $1 billion name. Emily Carter gave up her pride. But what they gained was everything money could never buy. A partner who sees the bruises and stays anyway. A home built on laughter, not leverage. A love born not in luxury, but in a lie, that turned into something real. And maybe that's the lesson. It's okay to start in the wrong story if you have the courage to write a new ending. You don't need to come from power to deserve love. You don't need to be perfect to be chosen. You don't need to be rich to be enough. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever felt like Emily, overlooked, underestimated, or unseen. Share this video, because someone else out there needs to hear it too. Comment below. Have you ever loved someone who came from a different world? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where love defies the odds and hearts find their way home. Because everyone, yes, everyone deserves a second chance at love, legacy, and life.